So we'll begin the November meeting of the National Development Board. Call this meeting to order at 11:05. I know this meeting was advertised and we do have a quorum present. And if I can get a motion to approve the minutes from the October 7th meeting.
So moved. Second.
Anybody who wishes to address the board at this point, will call for any recognition of any person wishing to address the board. Ms. Sharp?
Thank you. My name is Helen Burns Sharp. I'm with Accountability for Taxpayer Money. I wanted to talk about two items coming up on your agenda later, but at first raise sort of a big picture question and propose, something that would help address my concerns. And that is that it seems like there are a couple of things on here under workforce development that reminded me that I think transparency is an important issue, and I think you all want to be as transparent as possible. So what I found in looking online, trying to find some of the details, that I didn't get much in the way of specific information. And so I think there's a solution to this, and I was a department head in Oregon for 18 years in a city manager form of government, and anytime we presented something to planning commission or a board or the city council, we had to do a staff report. And in that staff report, we had to kind of summarize, this is what's before you, and this is why we're presenting it to you, and here are some of the questions that you might want to consider in making your decision. So sort of frame the discussion. So I think something like that, and I imagine staff would be happy to do that, but I think that would go a long ways towards like answering some of these issues that I have today. But since I didn't find answers to these questions, I wanted to raise them quickly and say that these are not a reflection on staff, a reflection on the chamber, a reflection on the company that's asking for a grant or whatever. This is just wanting to know the answers to some kind of basic questions. So in the case of this donation to the chamber, for the IDB to donate $50,000 to the chamber for a workforce development tech accelerator program, my questions were, who decided we needed this new program? Has it been discussed at a city council meeting? What kind of entities qualify to receive donated lease payments? Is there a written agreement between the city, IDB, and the chamber that includes a description of the program and the expectations? And is there an explanation for why the chamber needs additional public funding to do this program? The city and the county pay the chamber $1.2 million annually to assist with economic development activities, including administering the pilot program, and we've only had 3 pilots in the past 5 years. But there probably is a good reason, and Adam or someone can explain that maybe today if he cares to. And the second one, this is the resolution on a grant with a company called AIS Enclosure Systems, and I read about them, and they sound like a really cool Chattanooga business. But in terms of sort of the policy questions here, normally when you all, like in the small business incentive program, the city council established that program, and then sometimes you make grants to individual small businesses. I'm wondering, in this case, was there a resolution? Did the city council establish a high-growth jobs and investment program? And is it a new program? And have you been asked to make grants to other private businesses in the past? And the name of this program is High Growth Industry Sectors. Is industrialized building manufacturing on that list, if you have a list? What criteria should the IDB use when deciding which businesses to reward? On pilots and TIFs, the IDB first reviews an application. Have you seen an application for this company's request for taxpayer assistance? Who prepared the agreement? Was it the city attorney, the chamber, or a private attorney hired by the prospective grantee? Good Jobs First is a national policy resource center that promotes government accountability and economic development. Regarding accountability for tax incentives, they have called Chattanooga the least transparent of the major cities in Tennessee. Let's change that, starting with staff reports and continuing by keeping transparency in mind when you consider and decide on what your recommended pilot policies are going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Is there anybody else wishing to address the board at this point? right, thank you. We'll move into our first resolution. This one is for the Volkswagen project. A resolution to approve the purchase of an E200 NE 155 compressor and HBA 15004 descant dryer from Ingersoll Rand Industrial US for the cost of $286,003.30 and the freight allowance of $3,500 for a total cost of $289,503.30. And to amend the resolution approved October 7th, 2024 to remove the installation allowance of $100,000. Who's here to speak to? Oh, thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chair, members of the board. This resolution previously, the purchase of this compressor had come before the board in October, and it included the installation allowance. However, after further consideration, the company is desiring to just handle that installation portion themselves. However, they do have the need for the addition of a dryer to be part of this air compressor. So this is still the same compressor that the board looked at and approved prior in October. We are adding the dryer component to this, so it is an additional element that's being added onto the compressor, and then we are including a freight allowance. So the $289,503.30 includes a freight allowance as well for having it drop shipped to Volkswagen. And at that point in time, our staff will be there with Volkswagen staff in order to confirm receipt of the compressor. We will then do, just in looking out for the board's best interest, once they are complete with the installation, we will then do a follow-up inspection in order to confirm that the purchased compressor and dryer are in service, even though the purchase of the installation is not part of what is being requested of the board. So this is coming from some of the final remaining funds from MOUs 1 and 2, which are, these are all local incentive dollars. So there'll be a small amount that'll still be left over after the completion or after the purchase of this compressor. But there's not a whole lot of dollars left, so we are very near the end of those dollars. So I apologize for the fact that we had come in October. At that point in time, we thought we were trying to move quickly in order to get the order in place so that it could be installed during a December shutdown period for the plant. However, once they made the determination that they were going to handle the installation, that holiday shutdown period is not critical to the replacement of this piece of equipment. So therefore, it was determined to be in the best interest just to go ahead and come back. So our apologies for you all having to see this twice like this, but that's the series of events that have led to this. So be glad to answer any questions about that, particularly since we know this is coming back for an amendment.
Any questions from the board?
Real quick, this really just changed, like, in October, we approved $336,000, I believe. This changes it to $289,000. And correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The 336 included the $100,000 installation allowance.
Yeah.
And so Ingersoll Rand essentially was giving a discount if they provided the installation. Since they're no longer providing the installation, the base amount of the compressor did go up about $20,000, and then we have since added this dryer has gone onto this purchase as well. So that change in base amount plus the dryer and the freight allowance being added brings the revised total to the $289,503.30.
So this resolution will replace last month's resolution.
Yes.
Any other questions? I'll take a motion.
Motion. Second.
So,
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Our next resolution, the next two are for the E2I2 project, and so we'll start with number 6 here. So the first one is a resolution authorizing the Industrial Development Board Chair or Vice Chair to execute a progressive design build contract in form attached with additional attachments for the Class A Power Project, contract number W20 027, and Archer Western Construction LLC of Atlanta to execute Phase 1 of the project in the amount of $13,390,000, subject to approval by the Office of the City Attorney. We'll start with that one.
Good morning.
Morning.
Justin Steinman with the Wastewater Department. And to clarify, this is actually not related to the E2I2 project. This is actually our second design build project that we are coming to with the Class A Power project. We gave a presentation on it a few months ago. This award is for Phase 1, which with the design build contract is from design to, initial design all the way up to 60%. And just like we came, I think last month or the prior month with E2I2, you may recall we came with a change order where once we had the guaranteed maximum price for that first project, we came with the change order for approval for the full project cost. So in a number of months, when we get to 60% design, we'll do the same thing with this project. We've consulted with Phil as acting as IDB counsel as far as this contract format is a standard DBIA contract form. We're still talking with the consultant about possible amendments to it, as well as final review of that by the city attorney's office. So that's why you've got those caveats in the resolution for this particular agreement.
Thank you. Any questions about this one?
To clarify, this is for the work being done at the treatment plant, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a number of different process improvements, including biosolids reduction and improvement, THP, things like that.
And this is all part of you're actually, going to finally install an incinerator or of
Well,
sorts? Or
there's a number of
what?
different process improvements, and actually part of this discussion, part of working with the consultant is finalizing what those processes are. But as far as outcomes, they include producing RNG or CNG for either sale or reuse,
Right.
Reducing our biosolids volume and increasing quality, a number of different things
I
like that.
just want to make sure I had the
Yes, sir.
project in mind. That's the one, okay?
You got it. Any other questions?
I move we approve this resolution.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution passes. Our second one for the E2I2 project is a resolution authorizing the Industrial Development Board to enter into sales contracts with the Electric Power Board of Chattanooga for electrical services for the West Chickamauga and South Lee Highway project sites for the E2I2 project at a cost not to exceed $450,000.
So the cost for these electrical service relocations is not part of the design build contract. So any expenses that are outside that contract, we have to come to the IDB to request approval for. So this just represents an estimated cost with some cushion because we're still finalizing those sales agreements with EPB as to upgrades and changes required for the electrical services for both project sites for E2I2.
Any questions on this one? Motion? Take a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And our last one for this is a resolution authorizing the Industrial Development Board Chair or designee to approve expenditures of $50,000 or less for the E2I2 design build project for expenses occurred outside the approvement design build contract.
So this item is, much like at council, staff have the ability to process expenditures for items less than $50,000 without council approval. What we've been finding is there are, with a design build project of $150 million plus, there's a lot of expenses that can fall outside and services that may fall outside the design build contract. And we did not feel it was a good use of the board's time to come for every $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 expense that falls outside of it. And so this just authorizes the chair or designee, Bill Payne, for example, who is currently authorized to sign invoices and other things, to do that on behalf of the board for those expenses under that amount solely for the E2I2 project. If we proceed with it for Class A power, we will bring a separate authorization request.
Any questions about that?
And if not, all of those will have to come before the board for ratification or action taken after they occur. And sometimes these are time-sensitive issues.
Hear a motion?
I move we approve the resolution.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And next we'll hear a project update.
And typically we've just been providing that in a in PDF format. So if you have any specific questions, I'm glad to answer those, but otherwise did not have a presentation prepared for that update.
Okay. We have the reports. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, as serving in the chair role today, I would like to move item number 9, home serve, up to our next item, and then move the workforce development item after the home serve item. So our next item is home serve, a resolution authorizing the industrial development chair, vice chair to execute a quitclaim deed transferring the home serve property located at 7134 Lee Highway, parcel number 139PC007, given the completion of the pilot incentives, which ended December 31st, 2023.
And if y'all remember on these types of items, whenever something goes back on the tax roll, it is a completion of the process here for the pilot, and therefore they will be taxed at the rate of the improvements on the property from that point on. So it will no longer be a payment in lieu of taxes. It will be an actual tax rate based upon the improvements on the property, and that's what's been requested in this case.
You need a motion?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Should have heard.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
They're
you.
now back on the tax rolls. That's good.
All right,
Done.
thank you.
Nice.
Okay, we'll move into our next item, workforce development. The first item here is a resolution authorizing the Industrial Development Board to donate $50,000 from its funds generated by economic development lease payments to the Chattanooga Chamber Foundation, a Tennessee nonprofit corporation, for a workforce development tech accelerator program and furtherance of economic development in the technology sector.
Good morning.
Morning.
So you all have had the opportunity to hear from me many times over the past few years. As many of you may know, the mayor has a new member of the team that has joined our team to give us a little bit of boost on the economic development and workforce development front. And so before we jump into the presentations, I wanted to have a chance to introduce the mayor's new point person for economic development, Sharita Allen. Sharita previously served with the city of Chattanooga in the capacity of Deputy Administrator for Economic Development before joining the state of Tennessee's Department of Economic and Community Development, where she served as the Director of Workforce Development. That's a lot of development, so. But I wanted to introduce Sharita Allen. Sharita will kind of be taking things from here, and she will be the primary sort of go-between between the administrator and this board, representing priority initiatives for this board. And so before she jumps in, what I wanted to sort of say and to sort of frame for her is that a lot of what you are hearing today is a reflection, if you think back to when you all heard the Chattanooga Climbs presentation, which it has now been several months for, but you will remember that one of the things that the city and the county do with the Chamber of Commerce is we work with them to develop the Chattanooga Climbs Economic Development Strategy. And in that Chattanooga Climbs strategy, there is a focus on workforce development, creating high wage jobs for Chattanoogans, and then also pursuing targeted industry sectors to grow our economy, including pursuing the sort of growth in the advanced manufacturing space, as well as the software and IT development space. So a lot of what you are going to hear today is a reflection of that. It is a reflection of the pursuit of those sectors because of our work that we do with the Chattanooga Climbs Plan. And because of the support that we give to the chamber is reflective and includes that work in addition to the work to pursue economic and to vet economic development projects for pilots. So I just wanted to sort of set that up as a good framework for Sharita, and I'll let Ms. Sharita Allen take things from here. Thank you.
Terrific. Good morning, board. And I will pause for a second. If our VW folks would like to depart, now would be a good time for you. And we'll get into it. So as a follow-up to some of the questions that Ms. Sharp had earlier, what I wanted to do was provide a framework for our economic development tools that we're currently using. And I'll start with this slide. So what we are working on moving forward is going to be supported by these two recent studies. So March of 2024, the local regional planning agency authorized this study that's related to capital funding and how we fund our capital projects for both infrastructure and facilities. Prior to that, there was a study that was completed in winter of 2023. That was, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. That was commissioned by both the city and the county, and that was to look at our existing economic development programs, looking at the tools that we currently have and what tools we need to add. And so if you look at sort of the high-level recommendations, those 4 bullet points underneath, it's looking at vacant and underutilized downtown sites. Obviously, there's going to be some retail incentives pointed towards that. It's transparency and clarity for developers seeking public benefits. Again, we're going to be looking at moving forward standardized agreements, standardized applications, looking at the approval process, looking at how we evaluate and verify job creation, capital investment, all of those things. That's part of that study. It's looking at activating commercial corridors. Planning for 2025, again, we'll be looking at some retail and restaurant incentives that are pointed in that direction. And then the last one, providing work-based learning to improve job access. Again, some workforce development components to that. And so that's going to take us to sort of our current toolkit and how it's set up. And so all the items in black are our existing tools. And the way we look at our business toolkit here at the City of Chattanooga, recognizing this is not all encompassing. You're not going to see new market tax credits. You're not going to see EPA assessment grants. You're not going to see some of those state and federal programs. These are the ones that typically touch the Industrial Development Board here at the city. They also touch the city and the county. And so these are our primary goals. So you'll start the first sort of 1, 2, and 3, those first 2 columns. Those are our startups, our small businesses, our neighborhood businesses, bricks and mortar, all of those programs. Some of those we have brought in the past before this board. You'll probably see construction mitigation grants come up as we look at the Walnut Street Bridge renovation project. Again, those awards will come through this particular body. That center column, when you're looking at growing small business and the number 4, those are typically programs that are funded using the economic development fee that's paid from pilots into the Industrial Development Board. The board has the authority through the state statutes to fund programs using those dollars. And so that's where historically grants to private businesses have been made in the form of growing small business grants. You've made previous grants or innovation grants. Moving forward, we'll look at facade and signage grants. Those will come out of those economic development fee payments as well. And then looking at sort of the high growth jobs and investment, that's where those dollars are coming from, those pool of funds that are coming from those economic development fee payments that are made to this board as part of pilot agreements. When you look at column 5, when you're looking at large capital projects, those are typically projects that involve either bonding or TIF increment, property taxes. And so those will require both city, county approvals. Some of those also require state approvals. So we have those in kind of a different category. Those are larger capital investment projects. And so we'll see those typically will have resolutions that come from the city and the county that will come to this board because they're dealing with the source of fundings that are related to property taxes. And then the last one is workforce development. The workforce development piece, we currently have a fund at the Industrial Development Board that we have used previously to fund Covalence. coding grants. Years ago, we sent funding to Urban League a few years ago for it was an after-hours coding program as well for that. So historically, we funded workforce development programs through this board in the past that have come directly to us. Those funds are from a direct appropriation from the city of Chattanooga, and those funds are restricted. They can only be used for workforce development, but they currently sit at the Industrial Development Board, so you have the authority to use that particular fund category for workforce development. And then moving forward, if you look at the items in yellow, those are the items on which we'll be focusing the remainder of this year and then for 2025. And it's looking at, again, construction mitigation grants are coming. You'll see those. Facade and signage grants, we'll have Sarah Matson, our Director of Entrepreneurship and Small Business. She'll be working on that program now. The high growth, high jobs investment, again, that's coming from the chamber, again, being driven by the fact that we have less industrial property on which to focus, and as we look at smaller companies coming in, they need a smaller footprint. It's less capital investment, but typically more jobs and typically higher wage jobs. So again, that's that category. And then as you look in sort of category 5, that large capital with the yellow, we're going to be focusing on policy changes, templates, monitoring, and updated guidelines for pilots. We'll be doing the same for TIFs. And then as a community, we'll start looking at redevelopment, TIFs, and basically those are TIFs where the increment can be used not just for infrastructure, but in vertical construction. So a lot of housing projects where you've got mixed-use developments and there's housing in the vertical part of the development, a redevelopment TIF will allow the increment to fund that. And so we'll be looking at that moving forward, recognizing we're not doing one right now. We still have to put together policies around it. We're currently looking at other communities that are using that tool, and that tool would not come before this board. It would actually go through a different agency that has the authority through the state to do that. But I did want to put that on here because we will start hearing about that. And so that's sort of an overview of, as Ms. Sharp was saying, sort of, what's the framework? Like, why are we doing these programs? Do we have the authority to do these programs, and how are they set up? And this is typically how, as a city, we've operated when it comes to those programs. Historically, we've come to the board at the beginning of each fiscal year just to say, hey, we anticipate doing 25 small business grants, so we're going to move some monies over from one segment of the budget to fund that. We have not done that yet. We will do that in 2025. I just came back into the city in July, and so I'm anticipating when we get to the end of April, when we do the annual report to this board, that we will at that point put together our projections for our goals for each of those categories and what that might look like. And then before we get into our next presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
I think Sharita, if you would update us on pilot policies and procedure status, where does that stand? Because we haven't heard anything substantive in a while.
Correct. And so we currently have draft policies that were sent to us from the chamber. We've been evaluating those. The county has hired someone at the county to also oversee pilots. And the county auditor has someone who's also going to be a point person for auditing pilots. So at this point, the city, county, and the county auditor, we've all had conversations. I've had conversations with the city auditor. We understand what changes we need to implement based on performance of previous pilots and some of the sort of obstacles we've run into. And so we recognize that. And then we anticipate beginning of the year, we'll be ready with our pilot policies.
For presentation here?
You know what? I do not know the process, whether we go to city first or county or IDB, but all three boards will receive a presentation on it. Perfect.
Any other questions?
Thank you. And with that, we will move into our next item, which again is going to fall under number 6, workforce development. I would like to say to the city attorney, the way that resolution is worded, the funding is coming from a direct appropriation, not from economic development fee lease payments on this particular item.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. And I'd like to invite Andrew up.
Wait,
From
it's
Chattanooga
from
2.0 for the next
Yeah, I'm
presentation.
confused. You need to break that down.
Repeat that again, the way this was worded, needs to be updated.
It's got a reference about economic development lease payments, so it will be coming from economic development, is that correct?
It will be coming from an appropriation. It's already in a fund, but that fund has monies in it that were previous appropriations. So technically, this next item is coming from a city appropriation and not from economic development fees.
Okay.
We were fortunate in that there was an appropriation that had monies left over in it, and so we're using those monies.
And was that monies that was already generated for the Chattanooga Chamber Foundation or not?
No.
Okay. All right. They need to explain that to us then. Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Andrew Hudson. I'm the Director of Viable Pathways to Prosperity, which is the Career Pathways Initiative of Chattanooga 2.0, the collective impact organization that's housed at the Chamber. This morning, we're going to be talking to you about our request for funds for the Chattanooga Tech Accelerator. I'm going to be joined in my presentation by Walton Robinson, the Executive Director of the Apprenticeship Hub, and Christina Henderson, the Director of Workforce Development at the Chattanooga Chamber of Commerce. So I wanted to start out, if you want to move to that next slide, and talk about why we are asking for money for a tech accelerator. So we've worked for over a year now on outlining 10 jobs that are in high demand through our local labor market research and move backwards from jobs into training. In this instance, data analyst is one of those jobs that we see a 5-year resilience and a significant need for that labor. And Christina will talk more about that labor market research in a minute. But what we've also seen is a need to prepare someone for that method of training, which is the registered apprenticeship. So we work with the Department of Labor. Walton will talk more about the registered apprenticeship that we have. And this is a accelerated training that goes into that. So we have worked really hard to not just provide a training that gives someone a certificate, but we've moved backwards from a job into a training that provides someone an accelerated way to learn and earn while they're also working. So we'll talk about the schedule. And also be able to walk away with an interview before the training is over with. We piloted this program in a welding program last year, and also in our line worker program that we could partner with. And these are all collective impact programs, co-built with employers. And so we work with an employer to outline the skills and then build the training from there. So this training is a training that's an accelerated training. We're happy to talk to you about it. I'm going to stop for a second and let Christina speak a little bit about the labor demand for why we built one for data analysts.
Sure. I'm Christina Henderson with the Chattanooga Chamber Foundation. And I do want to clarify that when we talk about the chamber asking for this funding, that is not the chamber that is going to ultimately be receiving these funds. This is serving individuals in our community to help them enter into careers that provide family-sustaining wages. And so, like Jermaine mentioned when he stood up earlier, the chamber is committed to not only long-term economic development in our community of existing industries and recruiting new high-growth industries, but specifically in supporting the creation of jobs that pay family-sustaining wages for the citizens that historically have been underserved and overlooked. And so with all of that said, information technologies is one of the chamber's target industries in terms of recruiting over the next 5 years. And so while we have some of those jobs already here, we are very intentionally recruiting companies that will hopefully lead to the growth of jobs in that sector. And so, for example, this morning I looked at the current jobs in the community, so in the Chattanooga region, and there are 17 jobs for computer support technicians, and there are 9 current job openings for data analysts. So we know that the jobs are here, and Andrew, I think we'll have a slide in a minute about that, but we also, do I need to click forward? Okay. But we also know that those jobs will continue to grow. And so Andrew will speak again.
Yes, so as Christina mentioned, we built these pathways as true career pathways with the true impetus of economic mobility. So part of that has to do with recruiting students coming straight out of Hamilton County schools, as well as eligible adults in our underserved and underrepresented populations, and providing them reasonable ways to move from an entry-level understanding of IT into a middle skills opportunity. So we've had several instances in our community of trainings around, for example, Google IT certificates or CompTIA certificates, and those are great entry-level skills, but those aren't related specifically to a job. And so what we've done is we've built a training that leads to those base-level data jobs that pay $20 to $25 an hour, and at the same time provides that person to be an eligible candidate for a registered apprenticeship for a job that pays closer to $60,000 a year. So in our community, there have been 2 companies that are incentivized by the Department of Labor to hire registered apprentices in data analysts right now, but we're having trouble creating an applicant pool for them. And our goal was not just to create an applicant pool, but to create economic mobility. So part of that has to do with the fact that we're also building this directly off of skills training. I mentioned earlier that when we recently built a welding training, we built it backwards from 2 particular welding jobs in our community. And they were built off of skills. So we've taken that same skills approach from the trades and walked back into the tech space and said, what are the skills that you need for this job? What are, not just the certifications, but what are the abilities that someone needs in order to walk into that $20 to $25 an hour job. And so that's what we've outlined, as well as the ability for someone to go through not 1 certification, but 6, as well as the ability to have a weekly stipend to offset costs, and also the ability to have an instructor to walk beside of them during this asynchronous learning. So this also allows us to use, through a collective approach, the use of federal workforce dollars through WIOA funding. So one of the best things that we were able to pilot in our welding program was the ability to leverage those federal workforce dollars through individual training grants that people can qualify for based off of income and obstacles towards employment. And so this program is the same in that we built it in conversation with the Southeast Tennessee Workforce Development Board and with their American Job Center around those WIOA qualifications so that someone not only can get these great certifications while also working a job, because the training will be offered from 5:30 to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, but also allowing them the ability to have that connection with the workforce dollars. So, let's see, these are the certificates that we're offering. The basic outline of this, what is an accelerator? 7 weeks. So for 7 weeks, someone will go Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 8 p.m. They will meet in person using an online platform, using video learnings, as well as projects that teach them to move from a basic understanding of data. So in order to apply for this program, you not only send in your information on the website, but you take a basic Excel spreadsheet test that shows that you are capable of those entry-level data skills, and you're able to move further along quickly. And quickly is really important because our goal is to use any funds from the community as efficiently as possible to get someone into a job. Not just get them a certificate, but get them into a job. Otherwise, why are we doing this? Right? And so the goal is to move really quickly. And also, we know that on these jobs, being able to learn is a real thing. Being able to walk into a job and not just know how to do these different levels of coding or these different levels of data analysis or data visualization, but being able to be handed a new project and be able to learn these new skills that may come along with that project as well. And so that's part of what happens in an accelerator as well. It's very similar. You may have heard of popular boot camps. You think of programs like Ed2Go or edX that are offered by universities in our state. Vanderbilt uses edX. I know with UTC we have Ed2Go, and oftentimes those are used as online accelerators. This is an example of where we have localized that. We've worked closely with Bill Within, who Walton's going to talk about here in a minute, to create a custom tech accelerator based off the skills that were outlined for the jobs that are listed in our community. All right, Walton, I'm going to let you.
Yep. Walt Robinson, I'm the Executive Director of the Chattanooga Apprenticeship Innovation Hub. And I want to start by pointing out that we are just one of 5 apprenticeship hubs in the country. We are by far the smallest, but also the mightiest. The others are Los Angeles County, Sacramento, Maryland, Northern Virginia, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we were selected to be one of those 5 communities in the country to help like Andrew mentioned, connect people directly to jobs, actual jobs that exist. And so one of the benefits of being one of the 5 hubs is that we get to bring to Chattanooga programs, learning sequences, experiences that are proven in the other hubs and get to bring them here and adapt them to our community. So we're not trying something that looks good on paper. We're doing something that has worked elsewhere and adapting it for our community as part of the benefit of having the hub designation. So China here is a success story, just one of many. National Apprenticeship Week is coming up in a few weeks, and she'll be here visiting. We have many local employers who are starting apprenticeship programs or have apprentices active right now. And one of the things about this accelerator model, and Andrew mentioned it briefly, is that it is a middle skills gap closer. A lot of employers that I talk to are not finding the kind of applicants they need because there's a large emphasis on the basic front-end tools, right? You know how to use Excel and send email. And we have plenty of options in the post-secondary and higher ed space. You can get a degree, a 2-year, 4-year degree. We have Tennessee Promise. But there's a big gap in the middle there that's unfulfilled. And the employers are keenly aware of it. And so we've helped create this program. There are multiple organizations involved, as Andrew mentioned. The idea is that we have a collective impact to leverage this as a direct line to a job for folks in our community. So if anyone has questions about the hub, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll hand it back to Andrew.
Can you explain that hub thing? I've lost that.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Absolutely. And this is, I'm glad you asked. This is all I talk about all day long. So the Department of Labor, after talking to a lot of businesses all over the country, doing studies, determined that there were barriers to creating registered apprenticeships. And by registered apprenticeship, I mean something that is vetted by the Department of Labor for quality, something where an individual learns and earns at the same time, right? So you learn on the job, you have a mentor, but you get paid to do it. That there were some hurdles to creating those apprenticeships in the new economy, right, in the technology space. And so they created something called the Apprenticeships Building America Act. And under that act, one of the grantors, Build Within, which is a registered apprenticeship intermediary, and I won't get into the details of that because it is a mouthful, but suffice it to say, the Department of Labor had, as part of the grant, allowed Build Within to deploy resources into 5 communities, right? And as part of the resources, you get me. We have another staff member. We've got access to what would essentially be the equivalent of millions of dollars worth of economic development and workforce development software, training programs, and all of that's provided to our community by the hub designation.
And what 5 communities? Tell me again there.
Yeah, Sacramento, Los Angeles County, State of Maryland, Northern Virginia, DC, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay.
One of these things is not like the other ones.
So when did y'all start this?
We were awarded the hub in November of 2022, and I came on in March of 2023, so we've been at it, and the grant runs for another 3 years.
It went in March of 23?
I came on in March of 23, yep.
Oh, okay. So y'all been up and running for a while?
We have, yep.
Okay.
We have. It's been a lot of education on the front end. There's a lot of confusion about what apprenticeship means, what the word means. That means something very specific.
Right.
So we've been doing a lot of education, working with businesses to start programs, getting employers to understand the potential of it, and then also working with the school system and working with other folks who are doing community-facing work to articulate that this is a great option, right? You can get an apprenticeship, get paid to learn. Some companies will pay for you to go get a college degree after you've graduated from your apprenticeship. And so it's a great option for people who maybe straight leap from high school to college isn't the best option for them.
Yeah, I agree.
So like this success story, does she live here? Or?
No, she's from the DC hub. What we're proposing today would start this model here in Chattanooga.
Okay, we don't have it here yet.
We don't. And we have the tools and the resources. We're trying to start the first cohort of the data analysis one.
And how will you select participants?
We've got a very extensive screening process. I'm happy to sit down and talk about it. Anyone can apply. We work with community partners, the Urban League, the Chattanooga Technology Council, all sorts of different folks to get people into the applicant pool. And we provide some education on the front end to each of the applicants. What is an apprenticeship? What are the privileges? What do you have access to? And we screen based on, like Andrew mentioned, we've got some skills assessments, but also we do some education around soft skills, job training that relates specifically to workplace etiquette and things like that. What does business casual mean? And so we do a lot of that work on the front end, and we place folks into this data analysis cohort. This is the idea. But then they also have the opportunity to go straight to a registered apprenticeship, which is sort of the next level above the accelerator. And so when we work with folks and get them into our pool, they have multiple options. They can go to an accelerator, they can go straight to a job with an employer, they can go to a registered apprenticeship program. And so we try and find an option for everyone who comes into the pool.
So if I may, this is for the data analysis position. The other two are welding and line workers, is that correct?
Correct.
So how many employers between the welding and line workers, how many companies are you feeding to
I'll have to let
for
Andrew.
those two? And then do you have any already lined up for the data analysis, and how many?
You can speak to the two registered apprenticeship ones. So for the line worker pathway, we work we work extensively with EPB and with TVA and IBW is also a community partner involved in that because they work intimately with those organizations. For the welding program, we worked with Aztec, we worked with Miller Industries and Avell Enclosures, and those have been the three largest employers that we've worked with. We work directly with the CWIs at Aztec to delineate those skills, and with the CWIs at Miller. We use that same model to walk back into this space where we've not only outlined the registered apprenticeship, but we move forward to what are the skills that are ready. So what Walton said with the middle skills is that we know that by 2030, 70% of jobs in Tennessee will require more than high school. But what we're not talking about is that over half of those jobs will require something other than a 2 or 4 year degree. And so what we're looking at is creative solutions. And so we've seen this tested in these other locations around the country as a way to get someone in those middle skill positions, such as this contract job. So the contract job, there's two major employers that are remote work employers. One is called Data Annotation, the other one is called Big Tech X. And they hire based off of an online interview that's based off a skills examination. And so one of the modules of this Tech Accelerator is practice exams like those that will be on that. We did the same thing with welding. We created the ability for someone not only to get their certification with the American Welding Society, but also the ability to practice on the skills that they might be tested for on a welding interview. In the same way, we have built this training so that not only they'll get those certifications, which are great for further advancement, but that they're also able to practice the actual skills that'll be a part of that exam, that interview that they'll take to get that first job. And so our goal is not only get them ready for a registered apprenticeship, which would be that $60,000 job, and then be waiting, but to have them moved right into that $20 to $25 an hour job at the end of the accelerator itself.
Mr. Hudson, I guess one concern I have is why these jobs? I mean, I heard you say about you target them as high growth, but there's a lot of other jobs that need training in our area, and why these jobs and who's benefiting, because there's only certain companies need this type of job. And if we give this money to the foundation, who's to say that the people you train don't take that training and go to Silicon Valley or Raleigh, North Carolina, and leave us? And I guess my concern is being asked to front $50,000 for a very targeted group of jobs. That's kind of bothersome to me, because you talked about welding, you talked about the line work and these other jobs. We've heard construction people say, like with Nippon Plant, they had to get an out-of-town contractor because the local workforce wasn't trained to do certain things. And so we've heard that from other occupations, and yet here we're targeting one specific, which it's bothersome to me. I mean, I get it, it's great for those people.
Sure, I completely understand your concerns, and we are working cross-sector. I mentioned that maybe I didn't mention explicitly, there are 10 career pathways that I'm working on across our community with collective impact. This just happens to be one of them that we're speaking to you about today. The reason why we were compelled to start here with data analysts, and we'll be working on one for cybersecurity later on in the spring as well, is that this is a job that has cross-sector applicability. And what I mean by that is that what we oftentimes call a data analyst actually has a different name when it's placed into a company. There are construction companies that have data entry roles that they need for their project managers. There are also advanced manufacturings that need people to run those ERPs, those databases for all of their materials. Those are data jobs as well. And so sometimes on the outset, it appears that it's just one sector, the tech sector, but really this is actually a more practical role that fits across our sectors. Because in Chattanooga, our largest sector outside of our public sector is advanced manufacturing. It's 13% though, it's still small. We really think about a job like this as one that can fit across those sectors actually. As far as keeping someone in Chattanooga, I think one of the things that we've discovered is that a lot of people want to stay in Chattanooga. They love it here, but they can't afford to live here. And what we've done is we've outlined career pathways to jobs that lead to starting wages of $50,000 or more. That's that data analyst role through the registered apprenticeship. And that's important because in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, an average one-bedroom apartment costs $11.50 a month. So 40% of that take-home would allow you to rent a one-bedroom apartment. And so what we're trying to do is create economic mobility so that people can stay here. I can tell you it's a lot cheaper to live here than it is in Silicon Valley. I've lived in Atlanta, in Cincinnati, and Philadelphia, and I love living here. But I also know it's a challenge as someone who moved here not that long ago to find housing. And so what we're trying to do is keep our talent here. And so that's our number one goal, is to create jobs that are, one, create training for jobs that are in existence. But in this instance, we started with data analysts because on the outset, it does seem like, oh, this is a Silicon Valley tech job. But in reality, it's actually a job that fits in all these different sectors that we're talking about. Employers would have them. Yeah, I'd love to talk more about some construction training and other things. I'll hopefully be presenting to you about pathways for those at another time as well. But we started in the trades. We started with line worker, we started with welder, and now we use what we learned there to start with a tech role that has cross applicability.
Are you telling us if you don't get this grant, this program won't happen?
We have already built the training. So the largest part of this, the expense for this has already been done. All of the learnings have been built. The online platform that people will use has been built. The in-kind donations, of the space itself this is a conservative estimate, have already been put together. If this funding doesn't go through, then we are going to diversify and turn back around and look for other funding. So it will not stop this training, but it is crucial to getting it up and running as soon as possible, which when I say as soon as possible, we're talking about January. Yes.
Just to follow up on that, because I was going to ask specifically what this was going to be used on. So this is going towards the stipends and payments for folks to actually run the program, not the actual building of the tech and things to...
All of the money will go directly to the participants and to the people that are helping them, those 3 instructors/trainers. So all of the money around developing the platform, the software, that has already been purchased, that has already been... That's through the hub. The community has that. We own that through a contract that many people have contributed to and maintained. It's under the umbrella of Chattanooga 2.0, but it is the Build Within platform that Walton and his team run. All of those software, those learnings, they're there. To put into perspective, if I were to send someone to Flatiron or to edX at Vanderbilt, a training like this could cost anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, but for a good affordable one and an expensive one could cost upwards to $25,000. And so that part of the training is already paid for. What we're doing is we're trying to create a holistic wraparound supports so that we can take people that are underserved, underrepresented, that already have obstacles towards employment, and give them the opportunity to do that. So that stipend, it says average, and what that is an incremental stipend. So we've discovered that by giving stipends, it helps offset the cost of transportation and of food and of childcare for someone to be in the training. But we've also understood that it's really important for us to have an increasing stipend. So it says average of 500, but it actually will start out lower and move up as the weeks go on to incentivize, because it's intense. The intensity of this learning is fast-paced. We want to make sure that there's not just wraparound supports, but also the ability for someone to be incentivized to continue forward. Yes?
Are these in-person trainings?
They will
Or
be
are
held
they
in person,
mixed?
yeah. So
Not in person.
through our collaboration with Chattanooga, we will be holding these trainings at the incubator at the BDC. And they'll be with 3 instructors. And the idea here is that a lot of these trainings and a lot of the myths around technology learning is that someone just goes on YouTube or they go on LinkedIn and they find these things and they do them. Well, that's a myth. It really is a myth. Typically, those folks have a job already while they're doing it. They're not at home with a child screaming at them at the same time. They're not trying to battle keeping their job. So this is a way that we've placed it in the evening so that someone can come after work if they're already in a job and keep the job that they have if it's an underemployed job, and at the same time have the means in order to succeed in this. So our goal is not to just create some really fancy, shiny platform. That's already been created. It's already been tested in other municipalities. What we've done is we've taken that, customized it to the skills that we've been asked for here, and then we're also trying to create those wraparound supports. Also, weekly through our collaboration with Chattanooga, there will be a mentor or a public speaker who already is in a data role at a company in our local community coming to speak on a professional development topic. We did this in the welding program because we realized that the soft skills, and you're probably going to hear more about this from our other presenters today, are just as important, if not more important, those what we're now calling durable skills. And it's not just showing up on time, it's not just being able to be punctual with emails, it's understanding the work culture. And when we're taking someone and moving them into the middle class, giving them an opportunity to advance economically, we also have to recognize that we need to not assume that they know what it means to work in these situations, and also to mitigate any types of microaggressions or things that they may be encountering, as well as to learn how to work in a work atmosphere. And so those things are going there. The other aspect of that, and the reason why we're having those soft skills trainings, is what we call social capital development. All of us got our first job because of someone that we knew. When I went to work landscaping, and then when I went to work for Arby's when I was in high school, it's because someone I went to church with said, hey, why don't you apply for a job over here? That's social capital, right? So when we talk about social capital development for data analysts, we want these folks that are not only training and getting the skills, but knowing who may potentially be their manager at a company or someone who might write them a letter of recommendation later on. So those will be part of the training as well.
Mr. Hudson, is there anything online about this tech accelerator program? And here's why I'm asking is,
Sure.
I mean, this is no reflection on you, but we, at least I, first got wind of this 6 days ago.
Okay.
And to me, it's important. I mean, you guys obviously spend a lot of time. You've identified these industries. You're seeking this money to try to help this one area just as starters. But there's a lot that it just, there's unknowns here that I'm frankly, as one of 5, I'm not comfortable just giving away $50,000 to target a select few jobs, and I don't know anything more about this whole thing. I mean, that's what bothers me, and I would like to get some more information before we start as a public entity, start doling out money for certain jobs and not others.
For sure, I understand that. Do you want to speak about the platform or?
It's okay. We're happy to come and talk with you about it in depth, right? I get your concerns are totally legitimate. And so however it's appropriate to do that, let's do that. Let's engage in that conversation, because I think if we're able to get into the details and unpack it, there's a larger strategy at play here, something that the city the county, the school system are already invested in with the hub, along with the Department of Labor. And so painting the larger picture might be helpful to surface some of those things and hopefully answer some of your questions. So we're happy to do that.
Well, and I think Ms. Sharp raised some good questions there as far as, I mean, has this been discussed with the city council, the folks elected by our city?
Have to defer to Sharita on that one.
So this item has not been discussed with the city council or the county commission. It came directly to the IDB under the authority of the IDB to support workforce items. And so that's why it came direct. Now, Build Within has been supported by the city in the past. So the Build Within is not new to the city. And so this was an extension of that. And then our partnership with the Chamber and the Chamber Foundation is born out of all of the requests that we receive on a regular basis from organizations that are doing workforce development, because everyone is now, and figuring out how do we vet them, which ones have employers behind them where the training happens and people actually get jobs versus which ones are just doing training for the sake of training. And so that's where we pulled in the chamber to say, is there a need here? And then who are the existing partners? Are they collaborating with other entities? What are the deliverables? And has this been proven? Has this happened somewhere else so that we know we're just not funding an effort or an initiative in the hopes that it's going to be successful, but that it has proven results. So that's why we brought this to the board versus taking it to the city council, because the city has already invested in Build Within and bringing them to the city. We already have that. It's the next piece is we need small micro workforce development initiatives funded to pilot them, using small p pilot, to pilot them so that they can then prove successes, and then they can go off and find additional funding after we get through the first couple of cohorts to figure out how that looks. And so, I mean, I would turn and ask council, does the IDB have the authority without city council to move an item like this forward?
Well, yes, there is authority under Tennessee law at 753-302, that's in your resolution on here, that you have the authority to donate parts of the rents, revenues, or receipts that if you find that the action be in furtherance of the purpose for which the corporation was organized. The corporation was organized to try to help workforce development here in the city of Chattanooga. So that's one of those things. I was mainly concerned, where's the $50,000 coming from? Do we have pilot funds that will generate that money? Where does the money come?
So those funds are actually come from a tech workforce fund that is already established at the IDB, and those are the appropriation dollars that were sent over by the city. I'm not sure when those came over, but we do have a fund that's just for tech workforce training that we've had for some years. And in the past, we funded UrbanLink with that, and we funded Covalence coding schools for that.
Yeah, and the IDB only has the authority over funds that it generates, so that's the reason I was trying to make sure that is funding that would be coming from pilot funds that this body has in its funding.
Okay.
Let me say this. I think this discussion is good in the sense that you can see where we've got questions.
Sure.
Or where if we had a kind of, as Ms. Sharp referred to, a staff report of some kind that gave us more information as far as background, where the money comes from, and addresses those questions on the front end, we wouldn't have them sitting here today.
Well, moving forward, I suggest we do that the staff bring them a report for all items for consideration. That's easily done.
I think that would be
Because
helpful.
we have it in our heads. Like, we know all the information, we just haven't given it to you.
So how about we defer this resolution to the next meeting?
If I make just a couple of quick questions. This is a 7-week program, is that correct?
That's correct.
So this is basically the 50,000 is for 8 people, 8 students, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're training 8 students with the in-kind and total of about 91, just under 91,000 for 8 trainings, is that correct? I mean, I see it's in-kind.
In kind, yes.
So okay, I wanted to get that.
So to put
I was just gonna say, I'm 100% for workforce development. We need it.
Right.
I work in manufacturing, and it's tough to find good people. So I understand that need. I think this is opening a much larger box. I echo Mr. Rogers here that it's hard for me to sit up here and say, let's just give $50,000. I learned about this, I think, Saturday. So I've had very little information to read, and it's,
Okay, well, I'm happy to provide you with more information. We've definitely got more information. I'm also happy to provide a full demonstration of what the actual learning platform looks like. We're also able to provide some testimonials. We provided an anecdotal presentation of China, but also the ways in which that allowed transitions for her. I'm also happy to provide some economic impact as far as to talk about, I know $90,000 sounds like a lot of money, but when we talk about this in comparison to the way that we do this through incentives, we're talking about something around $196,000 a job through TIFs and somewhere around $30,000 through customized training. We went way under that to sit somewhere around $8,000 a job in this instance. So we're nearly a fraction, sorry.
Shedding
It's
that light.
Monday.
Thank you for shedding that light.
So, but I'm happy to provide more information to give you that context. Completely understand your questions around that based off of the limited information. I think what we provided was something for the time that we were here. I thought it was supposed to be more succinct, and so that's what we provided. Didn't realize there was less context. So I'm happy to provide that.
and I'd also like to see success from someone local through your lineman program or welding program.
Sure.
Not, you brought someone from DC that really doesn't affect.
Sure, yeah,
I mean,
we've even got.
Example, but I'd like to see what you've done
a
locally.
video about our lineman that Ms. Jones is on, so.
Oh,
You were
okay.
interviewed by Jay Adams for it. So,
Yes.
so the alignment program's been very successful, and as well as our welding program, and we're learning from them and constantly measuring those, not just ending that. The other aspect of this is the aspect of sustainability.
Mr. Hudson, if I may interrupt,
Yeah,
Madam
go ahead.
Chairman, I make a motion that we table this
Sure.
until the next meeting and we can get some more information.
Sure.
Mr. Hudson, Mr. Robinson, and hear our concerns so they can come back and more direct in that sense. I make a motion that we table it to the next meeting.
Can I make a comment related to that?
Sure.
I think my concern is a little bit more on the like industrial development city side, like what is the total pot that we're looking at? Because it's hard to grant, but if we have a ton of funds in there, then maybe it's time we need to start doing more grants and doing something with that funding. So I think my questions, y'all did an excellent presentation. I think you gave us a lot of information today, which I really appreciate. Anything that we can publicly share, I think is also helpful because I do want to maintain the transparent aspect of, and I agree, we need a little bit more ahead of time would be great for us, but also anything that is publicly able to be put in our packets and posted would be helpful. So I just wanted to note that I think there's only so much that you all can do because I have some questions too on like overall where the money is coming from and how much is in there.
Okay, is there a second on the motion to table?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we will, and I know you have to, we're going to lose our quorum. Can you just like 3 minutes?
Your lawyer would ask, is that just tabling until the next meeting in
Next meeting,
December? Yes.
December.
Yes, and if y'all can come back, we'd appreciate it.
I guess I'll move to table the second since we might run out of time.
Yes, thank you.
I moved to table.
Is there a
8B.
second? Okay, all those in favor of tabling the second one till December as well?
Aye.
Okay. Before we close, one quick thing. When we approved the minutes, we just did a motion and a second. So can I get all those in favor of approving the minutes from earlier? Aye. Thank you. Okay, thank you all. Is there any other business or discussion items? Hearing none, we will adjourn at 12:13. Thank you.
I didn't know it was past noon already.
No, you're fine.
I'm sorry I sat in your seat.